starting to back off of their active status, and they're going to go to monitoring this situation. And when you look at how everybody officially is starting to take their hands off this, but watch very closely, we have to do the same thing here in Cannon Beach. And so when you talk about Manzanita and those areas, you have to realize Manzanita has well over 350 volunteers that mobilize very quickly with their messaging. And I love them, and they are the gold standard for how things move. For us to take that on, we have to just continue to monitor what's going on, work with our Chamber of Commerce, and continue to talk to them about how they want to change kind of the behavior when it comes down to the businesses. I know that working with the Chamber and talking to those members down there, they've all been, depends on which business, but they've all been, well, we're going to require people to wear masks in this space. And some of them have not been that deliberate with what they're saying. Oregon Health Authority basically says if you can't do social distancing, you require a mask. So we have the ability to put this into perspective for people, but for us to actually start enforcing that everybody walks downtown has a mask on their face is really something challenging. And we don't have thousands and thousands of masks to dole out to require that. So we just have to kind of keep that in perspective and keep pushing education. I also had a chance to drive through town, which I do 2 to 4 times a day, and I saw a combination of both. I saw a combination of some visitors that were in town casually walking around, and then I also saw a lot of people with masks on, especially the ones that were standing in line waiting at the restaurants in the parking lots. They were attempting to social distance, and I saw a lot of people coming in and out of the post office, and they all had masks on. And it just depends on your snapshot of the day. So I think the more we make it a PR campaign to put out information about masks, and we also encourage the business owners to continue doing what they're doing with that, I think we're going to be able to keep an eye on what's happening. And we're watching it every day. So I think we're in the right position to continue to move forward. But the anxiety about downtown, George is right. It is hard to do social distancing on a 6-foot sidewalk. That's not something that we can take lightly, but we have to realize that, if we add that small space with a mask and really encourage it and people start responding to it, then that'll be positive. And we just got to keep getting that messaging out. And we can do that locally in town. The Chamber's really good at it. The city's been much better at it in the last few weeks. And that's what I'd say our best bet is to just keep with the education and keep pushing the message.
Bruce, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I guess I'd like to ask, what is, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Betsy.
Well, I guess, thanks, Rick, for what you said, but what are the plans to be doing that specifically? The education part. I mean, what's the city's role in that? Are you just turning that over to the Chamber to do that, or is the city going to have something that they've got planned as an emergency response kind of arena to promoting people being safe and doing physical distancing?
That's a great question. The way I'd like to answer that is this city is very unique because it uses macro and micro communication. Some people check the internet. Most people only look at one source of information for where they get news. The challenge is we've been media blasting everything we've been doing along the way, and people are saying we're not being informed, we're not being informed. We've even gone and knocked on people's doors, and it still comes down to that. Right now, currently, as we keep moving forward, it's hard to have one message and then put it out there on billboards and make new signs and put it in the cases at the post office and then the kiosks, and then 24 hours that message change. So it's very challenging to do any kind of messaging that is permanent or semi-permanent without completely getting on a horse and changing it every day. We've been contacting the Gazette and the Historian probably every 3 to 4 days, trying to get things in print. And you have seen how fast we've moved our signs. The one thing that's interesting about using the Chamber is they reach a whole different demographic, which is really, really positive. And so we've been working together, and we've been on probably 3 to 7 Zoom meetings a week. George has been at most of them, and the counselors have been at almost all of them in some capacity. And so the messaging that we're doing is really broad spectrum. And we have been posting everything on Facebook and our webpage. We communicate immediately with the chamber, and then we get the media blast out. My situation rep that I send out every 24 to 48 hours, I don't just send it to the council and staff. I also filter some of those messages and send it out to individuals who have contacted me and want information that way. So it is a very good question, and it's a challenge for me to figure out how to do this. The hard thing about having a specific plan about how to move to it is it's always a moving target. I don't know how long this is going to last this way. And so I also have to be careful of not making bold statements of Cannon Beach is going to require everybody to wear masks. That's not the case. Unless we decide as a policy, as a council to do that, and we have to wait for those things to come in order to do that. So I wouldn't say that we can't do it because it's really hard, but we are doing it even though it is hard. But it is, I feel like I'm always missing somebody somehow. And I am working on that daily. But in general, it's really tough to realize that some people who don't have computers or they had their only internet access was going to the local public library, how they check their email, and that's not even out there to disposal. So it truly is an ongoing campaign of getting the word out and using every medium that we can, but also realize that those mediums, the message changes, and it has been changing. So we could go to requiring masks one day and then have a protest on our front step because we're requiring masks. There's always a side effect. And that's why I'm glad that the council and the staff are working together with the chamber every day to keep pushing that out. But it's hard to put a specific plan together that's going to change tomorrow. So I hope that answers your question a little bit, but it is unsatisfying. I wish I had a better message to tell everybody and say this is what we're doing and this is going to be what we're doing for the next month, and that's not the case. So I guess I just have to say hang on, and the roller coaster is still rolling.
I would suggest that one single sign could do a lot of good, and that would be one where we have the welcome to Cannon Beach. If even we just had, I think somebody already suggested this, just had a picture of a mask where we say welcome to Cannon Beach. So it's highly suggestive. Most everybody coming from out of town comes from the north, or at least, you know, the majority do. We could have one in the south entrance also, but I don't think we have a sign there now that says welcome to Cannon Beach. But anyway, the sign in the north would, I think, go a long ways to be suggestive about wearing your mask.
Yeah, well, I think we talked about that briefly at one of the city council meetings recently, but I'm not sure what the progress is on that.
And I think it doesn't even need to be any wording. It just needs to be a picture of a mask.
Mm-hmm.
It would be very suggestive.
Yeah.
Why couldn't we have the young people on the bicycles with the information bicyclists hand out information pamphlets to visitors?
Are you talking about the beach monitors or the
Yeah.
parking
Oh
lot?
no, the bicycle cops, the young guys.
Well, I don't think we have them hired yet, do we?
We could hire one.
I believe they're on standby, but we've not hired them yet.
That's an idea.
Well, then have Bruce ride his bicycle around.
That would create a whole nother hazard in downtown.
Well, another thing I've been doing too is I've been trying to keep up with what the city council and the city is doing through my Facebook page, but you know, not everybody gets that. So I know a lot of you here right now do, but and then I hope that people share it so that the word gets out. For those that aren't on my Facebook, they can share it among themselves. So that's another way we're getting information out.
That's really good, Nancy, and you're also featuring different businesses that are open and how they're open. I really appreciate that too.
Yeah, I think it's really important. We need to support the businesses, you know, whether they're doing takeout or whether they're just starting to open. We need to get that word out to people, to the locals, especially, so that we can keep them going. And I think that's really important. And I hope people are sharing that information as well.
Nancy,
One
I
thing
just
I heard-
appreciate, I just want to tell Nancy how much I appreciate the communications that you do put on your Facebook page. I just find you're my absolute best source for what's actually happening around town, especially vis-a-vis the city. Thank you for that so much.
You can retire the reporter, but you know, the reporter never retires. Anything,
Hey, Bruce, tell us about the fire.
Oh, yeah, last night, I'm sure everybody heard the sirens. There was was it Rick called Fully Involved?
That was the report. I went over and talked to him this morning.
Yeah. But, yeah, it was a house, and apparently the folks went out for a walk. When they came back, the fire had already started. There was a lot of damage, you know, all the windows were out, and they had to get all the way inside of the building. So, but nobody was hurt, and the folks that were staying there were able to find another place to stay, you know, for the night, so.
Where was it? Where was the fire?
it was
The
on,
fire was down at Brailier and Ocean, way down in the south end.
Rusty, I sent you a picture. If you want to show a picture of the fire, it's on your screen.
So was that near the Wave Crest?
Yeah,
Yes.
about two blocks down.
It wasn't, it was the house that the Nanettis used to live in, across the street from one that you guys probably know, Barbara. She hangs out at the Bald Eagle.
Hmm.
When we heard the sirens, Rex had smelled a noxious odor in our yard. It was like burning plastic or something, and we called some of the neighbors and they didn't smell it, but we're wondering
Must have been the fire.
if that was related.
Don't, you're on the north end, aren't you?
yeah.
Yeah, this is probably a couple miles, and I didn't, right on the scene, we could smell it, but I don't know if it went that far.
The people
And
that
it was
were,
more of a woods.
the people that were staying in it, were they the owners or was it a rental situation or what was going on? Do you know?
I don't know. Jason was there, he might have more information.
Ah, another illegal renter, huh?
Well, we don't know that.
To be determined.
Does anybody else have any other questions about anything going on in the city?
Yes, I want to know if it's all right to shoot the seagull that is pecking at our window screen and destroying it. I mean, with a squirt gun.
Oh, with a squirt gun.
Yeah, I don't want to get in trouble with Chief Schermerhorn.
As long as it's not too big of a squirt gun, I guess.
But I'm
Hi,
serious.
can you guys hear me? Or am I muted?
We can hear you.
Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, hi.
Hi,
This
we can hear you.
Hi, sorry, thanks, guys. This is Cindy from Ecola Seafood, and I missed the first 10 minutes, so I hope that you guys maybe have not already touched on this and I missed it. But I am wondering what the council people and other, business people feelings are on allowing some of the businesses to use their parking lots to put some tables for outdoor seating. Pretty much I'm wondering like through the summer because, right now I think that traffic, like parking is not as much of our concern as even being able to seat people. Like, for example, our restaurant is way too small to even have one table inside the restaurant.
I think that's another subject we're going to be talking about tonight, isn't it? The city council talk about tonight. So,
Mhm. Does anyone on the call though have an opinion or any objection to it? The thing that I think is it's a pretty big capital investment and it does take time to get tables. It's not like we just say, oh, let's tonight we vote, let's have them. I mean, if we're to order tables, it could take a couple weeks to get the tables. And one of my big concerns is making sure that it's a long enough time frame if they decide to allow it. But does anyone on this call have any objections to allowing businesses to use their parking?
I'm not going to say anything until I hear what the other city councilors have to say, but does anybody else have an opinion? George?
Yes, I certainly do not object to it. And as long as there's limitations on restaurants for seating, then to me, it makes sense. Once the limitations for seating are lifted, then we probably wouldn't want to do it. And it is unpredictable as to how long, those limitations will be there. But it makes sense to me that we give our businesses every opportunity to be successful as possible. And if outdoor seating can help that, then we certainly should allow it.
Yes, thanks, George. That's how we feel is, we've already heard of a couple of the restaurants aren't going to be able to make it. And when I'm talking to the other small restaurants, they're all in the same boat we're in. Is it's kind of the trade-off. Do you run the risk of trying to put tables, say they're 6 feet apart, but when people are coming in standing, getting seated, that's still pretty difficult to monitor versus the alternative of saying, well, maybe we'll keep the inside closed for seating, but allow people to sit in the, at really social distances outside. So I'm really hopeful. I'm really hoping that the council will take a good look at this, because I think it's very important for many of the small restaurants. So thank you. Thanks for listening and considering it.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about that tonight at the city council meeting. It starts at 5:30, and you can listen through Zoom if you'd like to, like we're doing right now. So if you'd like to listen to that discussion, feel free.
Yes, thank you. We'll definitely be on the call. It's just that sometimes what happens, what we found, is they'll ask for a question period, and then we don't get the time to respond, or there's too many people asking questions. And one of the points I wanted to make sure that wasn't overlooked is, sure, we get, if the restrictions are lifted, but as long as the 6 foot in social distancing is in place, that's where the problem comes in for us. Is we don't want to say, well, not necessarily phase 1, because if we only look at phase 1, that's like 3 weeks. So supposedly, by the time we get stuff here and make that investment, it's really almost not worth it. But as long as we're having to or as long as the city and people want us to try, or the governor wants us to continue to do social distancing, it's a kind of a longer term deal in our minds of how much money we're going to spend to put up barriers so people aren't turning into the parking lot, to make it look nice, maybe put some plants, put the tables out there, and really do a good Cannon Beach type of job on it. But it does take some capital investment. So we just want to make sure that the council people hear us on that, we're hoping that they don't say, well, we have to take a wait and see approach, because if they say, well, let's wait and see, then you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard spot of, do you do the time and the money to do it if we don't know that we can fly with it for the summer?
You can also
that's just my 2 cents.
You can also send in an email to the city council before noon today if you want to mention that in an email to us.
So we did send an email to each of the council people, okay. And we did hear back from Mr. Ogilvy. So I think I'm thinking that maybe the other council people should have received the email as well.
They probably did. This is Bruce, and the concept you're bringing up, Denise, is very interesting. I just want to talk about what the council faces when they're trying to sort something out, because there's a lot of, I don't know if you want to call them competing interests or whatever, but on the one hand, I know they want to support the businesses, but when they're sitting up here or they're sitting on Zoom, when they've got to make decisions and some of the other input that comes in is that, well, that's totally against what our code is. If there's somebody that says, well, I don't have a parking lot, what can I do? Those kind of things. And I'm not against what we're talking about, but I just want to point out that all the way through this, council has had to face those kind of decisions, and it doesn't seem there's a lot of middle ground. It seems that, you know, somebody wants something, and then somebody else says, well, no, that's the worst idea ever. So I guess I'm just putting out what the council's responsibilities and dilemmas and pressures are. So we'll be going through all these things tonight.
Okay, yeah, thanks. I get that there's always, you know, different views on things, but we appreciate you considering our point of view and the help it would provide for some of the small restaurants.
Sure, Denise. And also, Denise, if you were to send an email to City Hall by noon and say that you want to talk when this item comes up, we do, I don't know, I guess we take appointments for people to talk. So if anybody on the phone does want to speak at some point, there is a mechanism for that.
And Rick, there would be social distancing required throughout the whole phases, all of the phases, correct?
That's correct, and I'm not sure exactly if, you know, the governor's not going to talk about restaurants putting tables out in parking lots, but the governor has specifically said that 6-foot distancing and masks and social distancing is going to continue for a period of time. I would not even think that even through phase 2 that it would change very much, as in what those requirements of social distancing are. So that is a longer haul. Not only is phase 1 going to be at least for a minimum of 21 days, which has already started, but phase 2, that's going to be the most challenging to get out of, this phase 2. Because going to phase 3 is a kind of a big step. And we could stay in phase 2 for a period of time, which does have all the social distancing requirements within it. And so the only thing that really changes in phase 2 is that they allow bigger groups to meet in some settings and a few other tiny things. But when it comes into walking into a boutique or a small environment, they're still going to require 6-foot distancing and masks if you can't gain that 6-foot distancing. So you talk about this return on investment and everything like that, you just have to realize this is going to be a longer haul for certain things this whole year, especially mask wearing and how many people we put in a small environment.
You know, that was the other question I had. So, you know, when they're saying groups of 25, are they meaning that, so like say if we take a couple of the restaurants that are bigger that can seat more than 25 people inside even with social distancing, are they saying that that 25 pertains to, like, say, a restaurant where they're having a gathering of more than 25?
What they're really talking about are areas like City Hall or a church or areas that are a movie theater. They won't allow more than 25 people in that environment. And so restaurants, it's hard to regulate that because you have all this office or kitchen staff and everything like that, and they need to wear, and that's why they all have masks on. So really that number of 25 has to do with a single room and a space. Not really regulated specifically for a restaurant.
So for example, like even a restaurant that's a single room, like a big, like they can have more than 25 customers.
Well,
yes, that's like
and they have,
not very, that's not very many.
They don't allow more than 10 at a seating, and they also require all of the employees in there to wear masks. And so
yes.
They don't have any groups that are bigger than 10, and they still have to have social distancing between those groups, and then all the staff has to wear a mask. So that's how they make those controls happen that way.
But could you have like 5 tables with 6 people per table or something like that? That would be 30 instead of 25. I mean, would that be allowed?
That's correct, but they all have to have 6 feet in between them. So that makes your geographic area quite large.
Okay.
And so you'd have to have a restaurant that was pretty big to be able to handle those numbers because they all have to be 6 foot between each patron unless they're at the same table. And then there's nobody at the bars right now, like you can't sit at a bar and all those things. So it limited, even the larger restaurants, when you start putting the tables that far apart from each other and you limit the bar area to be seated, you start realizing they can't possibly put hardly that many people in there anyways. So that number 25 is basically meant for large spaces like a church. And then, yeah, I mean, if you read the Oregon Health Authority's restaurants, it's pretty specific of how it works with those numbers.
And are the employees counted too?
They're not counted as the 25, but they're required to wear masks.
Okay.
Okay.
And thinking a little bit further about outdoor seating and tying that in with potentially allowing pedestrians on Hemlock, it would seem that we would need to consider also at the time of closing any streets as to what we would allow in terms of restaurants to put tables out in those public areas. And obviously on a temporary basis in terms of certain hours of the day, whatever. It would seem that to take full advantage of the open space at that point, that we would allow tables in some of the common area or some of the public area.
And I'm assuming in that discussion, they might also talk about putting extra tables at the park, possibly. Is that
Anything's on the table.
So to speak.
okay?
Yeah, I think somebody did one time mention potentially putting tables in parks, but we haven't touched that yet.
Okay, because I think that would be also helpful for people that say, well, we don't, if they don't have to have their own parking.
And I don't know what we do when, you know, when we have rain and bad weather in terms of outdoor seating.
You just have to wear your rain gear and eat, pretend like you're camping in the rain.
Put umbrellas on the table.
Yeah, well, it's going to be, those are going to be some tough decisions about like closing Hemlock and letting people have tables in parking lots, because I think as soon as the nice weather comes, you know, as everybody who's here knows, you know, Cannon Beach has been struggling with not enough parking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it depends on how you look at it, but parking's an issue. And I don't know, boy, that you're taking away a lot of parking. On the other hand, I'd be curious, Cindy, to know which restaurants have already chosen to close. That's not very good news. I hate to see any of our local businesses just close down permanently over this terrible situation we're in.
I can fill you in on one. I heard from the Surfbird Cafe, one of my tenants at Village Center, that
Yeah.
they're not going to be able to reopen. So they are wanting to sell their restaurant, and their reason for closing is not 100% COVID, although that's a big factor, and they probably wouldn't have closed had COVID not come along. But at the same time, it's a couple who own Surfbird, and they are newly married, and the wife is pregnant with their first and only child, and she's somewhat of a high risk pregnancy, and for health reasons and because of COVID, they are not going to be reopening, but they are attempting to sell. So hopefully somebody would step in and keep that restaurant alive. If not, we will lose a restaurant.
Hey, George, this is Greg. Imprint Gallery has also announced that they're closing or not reopening and moving to Astoria.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yes,
Yeah.
I did receive that they are turning their imprint gallery from Cannon Beach into a online only business, and they're opening their gallery in Astoria as the Brumfield Gallery, which is their last name. But I hate to see that go. You know, most of the people on this call remember Floyd Peterson, who opened haystack gallery in that location. And yeah, so I hope a gallery continues in there. And I hope they call it Haystack Gallery.
Yeah, that's too bad.
The other thing I think about balancing the parking and the amount of people in town, normally I'd be one of the first people that would say, we need more parking and let's see how we can get more parking in a normal environment. But like in this case, in some ways, I have this feeling of it's okay to not have as many people in town, and it's okay to not have as much parking, and kind of forces the people out of the town if they can't find parking. But the people that can come, we want to make sure that we are able to serve them, and serve them in a way that gives them a good experience in Cannon Beach. So I think that in my mind, the argument about the parking, in some ways, having a little bit less parking at this point in time. I mean, I'm nervous about having thousands of people coming into town, and a few less people in some ways, as long as we can serve those people in a way that isn't detrimental to their safety, our safety, or to their Cannon Beach experience. That's, to me, more important at this point than trying to say we are really concerned about having a huge amount of parking available for people to come into town.
And the RVs for a while, open that up too.
I guess one thing I'm concerned about is if we reduce that much parking downtown, it's just going to go up into the residential areas. And we'll have just as much a problem as we usually have in the summer, if not more. But that's
something which is done if you ever park in the city parking lots, not in Cannon Beach, but in, the major cities, it's all, a lot of the parking now is all electronic, and every space is counted for, and how many spaces are available. We could take that to a much simpler level, and we could create a sign at the entrances to town that says parking is full. And when our parking is full, that sign goes up. It doesn't have to be electronic. We could send somebody out there to put up the sign, parking is full. And some people would go on down the road then, realizing, well, there's no parking in Cannon Beach right now. It might be a way to alleviate some of that pressure on neighborhoods, because I agree, Nancy, if people already made the commitment to come into town and they drive through downtown and can't find a parking space and all the lots are full, they're probably not going to leave town until they scour the neighborhoods to see if they can find a parking space. But if they saw from the beginning that parking was full, they may just drive on down to Manzanita or somewhere else.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I mean, we have the parking monitors. That could be part of their job, to put up a sign when the parking is full, because they're the ones that would know where the parking is or isn't. That's not a bad idea.
Well, you have to have a monitor when someone left town to radio to another monitor at the entrance to say somebody's left, so let another car in or something. They used to do that at Acola Park.
Yeah.
When it was full, there'd be a monitor down at the bottom, and then when a car would leave, they'd let another one in.
Yeah, I don't think we would care to try to fine tune it to that extent, because typically if the town is full, we're talking about, noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And likely it would be another 2 or 3 or 4 hours before, there would be a lot of parking available. Be at least my guess from my experience downtown.
How about limiting RVs? And give more parking to cars with families that are in the.
We have our RV parking on 2nd Street and a few spots in the city parking lot, Midtown. And Bruce, don't they get fined or tickets if they park elsewhere in town?
I believe that's the case.
Yeah, but how
I
about
need to check with Jason.
how about not allowing RVs for a while and let those spots be car parking spaces?
Allowing them where, did you say, Rick?
don't allow the RVs for a while and use all the RV parking places for cars with families.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that other than stationing somebody at the RV lot or the parking spots and say, no, you can't come in. I'm not sure how that would work. It might, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any other questions or concerns about anything? All right, well, maybe this is the end then. Bruce, did you have anything you wanted to say?
No, thank you.
Oh, come on, there must be something you want to tell us.
Well, I can tell you that at 11, there's a coast walk, not coast walk, mile adopter, Oregon Coast Conservation Coalition, whatever it's called, Zoom meeting that starts at 11. So if you guys are having fun with this, you could just move on to that next.
Thank you, Betsy.
All right, Les and Amy, we haven't heard anything from you. Is there anything you'd like to talk about?
I'm just kind of listening. I like to get as much information as I can. A lot of this stuff doesn't apply to me just because of the schools have different regulations, but I'm just trying to figure out how to keep myself and my family safe and making sure that I know what's required of me and when I go out and about town. So thank you for hosting this. I appreciate it.
Okay, anything else? Les, how about you?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I normally exist on mute. I appreciate all the conversation. Lots of great information. If I had to just tell you what my biggest concern is, it's the number of people not wearing masks.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what we can do about that. Great. Maybe it'll be discussed some more tonight. But anyway, we're all doing the best we can. Thank you.
That's true. Say hi to Lynn for me.
I will.
Okay, well, if nobody has anything else to contribute, Rick?
I just want to add that if Betsy, thank you for bringing my attention of people not getting the word out on stuff. If this is something that you guys want to do more often and we're getting more people coming to Coffee with Counselors on Zoom, I'd be more than willing to always be here to try to keep the information coming if this is another medium for it. So I'm a willing participant to make sure if this is how you guys get news, then we can move. I'll be here for that.
Great.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
It's good to see all your faces. Hopefully I'll see you soon.
Are you coming to us from Cannon Beach or Bend?
I'm in Bend.
You're in Bend, okay.
I'm in
You said you were
rainy
in
Bend. It rained over a half an inch here yesterday.
Oh, is that right? It was beautiful here yesterday.
That's what I thought he said. He was in bed.
Yeah.
All right, well, I guess then we can probably say goodbye and thank you for coming. And my coffee's getting cold, so I have to go get it warmed up.
Okay.
It's coming out.
Adios.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.